Recently, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, appeared in the Canadian Parliament to address House of Commons and others in attendance, and for some more support for the war against Russia. And today's times and anger and all that stuff, that would be a controversial statement to begin with. However, another very bad thing happened at the same time. So the former speaker of the House, Anthony Rota, addressed someone in the gallery during Zelensky's appearance, and his name was Yaroslav Hunka. He was mentioned as a hero of Canada, a Ukrainian hero for fighting against the Russians in the Second World War. Now, what that actually means is he was a member of the 14th Waffen-SS division, the 1st Galician. It had many other names, the Ukrainian Liberation Army or some sort of thing like that, to try to hide who they had been during the war. So against the Russians, and this is a shorthand that's used all the time, shouldn't be, is against the Soviets, or Russians are Soviets in the Second World War. It should be said Soviets, not Russians, because the Soviet Union was more than just Russians, which included Ukrainians. But what the problem here is, A, that this man was invited into the House of Commons by Rota or his staff. Hunka's son reached out to them or something to have him appear for Zelensky because of the Ukrainian connection, live in North Bay or something like that, which was Rota's constituency. The problems continue with this, however. It is all the members who were here stood up and started clapping. He got a standing ovation. People seemed very happy for this after he's called a Canadian hero, Ukrainian hero, and having fought against the Russians in the Second World War. I've watched the video multiple times. People are pretty happy about it. People are recording it and lots of clapping. This is across the Liberal Party, which is in power, the Conservatives, NDP. Everybody's standing and clapping. It's very problematic. So as of now, I'm recording this on September 27th in roughly afternoon. Rota has resigned as Speaker of the House. Whether he will resign his seat, I don't know. This remains to be seen. People within the Liberal Party were calling for his resignation as Speaker, so he had clearly lost the support of even his own party, let alone the others. So he is on his way out for this action, and the details are very hazy in how this come up to be. Of course, he's responsible. Rota's responsible. It's connected to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as well. I don't know if the PMO was involved, so that's the Prime Minister's office. They do all kinds of things for the Prime Minister. I don't know how the whole thing went down. We don't have details as of recording. And for those who don't know who I am, might be stumbling onto my channel for the first time because of this video. My name is Brad St. Croix. I have a PhD in history and focus on military history and Canadian commemoration of war, something I keep up on. It's something I know a lot about, and why Canada does the things it does when it remembers war. However, this is a bigger problem to me, is the clapping and the support and all the applause. It's being used as a political point to bash the Liberals and those in power, even though everybody else stood up and clapped. They were told who he was. The information was given. That they don't understand, or that they can claim they don't know what that meant, to me is bonkers. They should know what that means, fighting against the Russians in the Second World War. These are the people in charge. These are the elected people. These people are supposed to be smart, connected, and know all these things, and they don't. So to blame somebody else and use it as political points, to me, is not a good thing, and it speaks to a larger problem within Canadian politics, which I think has been going on. I know it's been going on for a long time, is a lack of historical literacy. There are many who have no idea about Canada's role in the Second World War, let alone the conflict generally. Full of problems. They should know better. Politicians should know better. We do a terrible job of even commemorating Canada's role in this war. So getting them to understand more is an imperative. What it's going to take, I don't know. Is it going to take clapping for former Waffen-SS in the House of Commons? But maybe. If there's one good thing that comes out of this, it's education and the role of this, and learning about the war crimes and everything like that. Before people jump at me, I know this unit is involved in war crimes. There's a whole memorialization of what they did in Poland. So this unit was not clean, all of that stuff. So in this commission that happened a while back about clearing them is utter nonsense. Canada's role in prosecuting Nazis, letting Nazis into the country, former members of the SS, is awful. We didn't even really properly try the members of the SS that killed Canadians in Normandy, other than Kurt Meyer. and he got off easy. I've talked about him multiple times on the channel. I'll link some stuff down below. But his, he was sentenced to be executed, and that was stayed, and he was given life in prison, which was also shortened, and he was released with Canadian permission. So it's a giant mess. We don't do this well. We don't understand it, whether we want to or not. And we, generally speaking, I don't know. Is it ignorance? Part of it, yeah, but it's a willingness to, a lack of willingness to learn. It's very problematic. So this unit has been commemorated in Canada, and I'm using that term in the more positive sense because it has, not my opinion, just that's what's happened. There are 2 memorials to this one division specifically. One in Oakville, Ontario, just outside Toronto, in a cemetery, one in Edmonton. Both had been vandalized, called war, Nazi war memorials, and putting the actual name of the 14th Waffen-SS on there, pointing out what these things actually are. The one that was in Oakville, when it was vandalized, the police, the Halton police, called it a hate crime, which is just utter nonsense to say that you can be hateful against Nazis, and they quickly backstepped. So this is also not new, this, out in the open of connections to this division. Canada has a large ethnic Ukrainian population. Some of them have been here for a very long time and have become an important fabric of Canadian society. Some are more recent, after the fall of the Soviet Union, that kind of thing. So, and also with the current events in Ukraine taking on a number of refugees here as well. So there's a large connection. With that said, history is messy. Before anybody comes at me and says whatever, accuse me of whatever you want, this is YouTube. I get it. I understand how this is messy. And one thing also I want to touch on is this whole thing is presented, as a dichotomy for Hunka here. He had the choice of supporting Stalin or the choice of supporting, Hitler. It's not the case, right? There's lots of people who didn't do either. I mean, there's lots of people who carried all kinds of horrible actions and had no connection to any of these governments as part of the Holocaust and the Soviet crimes and all of this stuff. It wasn't one or the other. He didn't have to join the Waffen-SS or being sent to the army. These things didn't happen. I don't know the Hunka specific situation. He's clearly tried to keep that quiet because it wasn't declared, obviously, when he came into the country, because they wouldn't let him in, so... but they might have, I don't know. It's a whole mess, and we just let things slip through the cracks. But that said, it's not always one or the other. There's always other options. You don't have to join, a unit known for its war crimes, which was clearly known in Ukraine by the time of Hunka's enlistment or entering of service, whatever you want to call it, in 1943. It's been going on for a long time in Ukraine, particularly the SS brutality against Ukrainians was well known there on the ground. So I get it. It's messy. I understand that. This isn't about Hunka himself. I really honestly don't care. His motivations and all that stuff, I really don't. I don't care. He's a member of the SS. The SS are terrible. They're bad. They're awful. I don't care. People can defend him. He can defend himself. I don't care. Members of the SS to me are person non grata. Doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is this lack of historical literacy. These things like these memorials going up and then calling the vandalism of them hate crimes, and then having this guy in the house and getting clapped for multiple, everybody there. And it's just a giant mess, and it's not okay. We need to do better. So if one positive comes out of this is it's about awareness in Canadian society, maybe broader, because this is making international news, and it has been ever since it happened, has not slowed down. It's on every outlet you can think of. It's that we learn more about what happened, about the crimes of the Holocaust, what the Soviet Union did to its own people, to other people. And we need to know better and learn better. And we just don't do that in a lot of countries, in Canada's. So we need to be better. We need to learn better. We need to understand this war. It's a major war in world history, a major war in Canadian history. And to have all these MPs don't understand what fighting the Russians during the Second World War means is extremely problematic. It probably won't ever happen again, just because the advanced age of those who served in these divisions from those who served in the war. This won't happen again, but, be aware of what these things mean, and maybe having things like those memorials removed. I mean, these are private cemeteries. I just don't support memorials to the Waffen-SS anywhere, ever. So, I mean, could we have some changes in this area of how we remember them? Maybe. I'm not hopeful, just because I know how these things tend to go, because I paid a lot of attention to this stuff. Hopefully something better comes of it of education and understanding about the crimes of this unit and what it did. And I still don't think it's an excuse for anyone in Parliament, elected to Parliament, to not know what fighting the Russians in Second World War means. That's not okay. And this is going to turn into a political fight for a long time, because it always does, with the opposition doing what opposition does and trying to take down the government, basically, and hold them accountable. In this case, I don't know how you hold anyone accountable for this, other than calling for resignations, which Rhoda has already done. That'll be it. I'd probably won't be anything more out of that. People will use it to score political points. The Russians are already using it as propaganda against Ukraine, which is not a surprise. But again, this stuff isn't well known. So it's stuff that we have to not be shocked at that's happening, but just stop it from happening through education. I guess that's kind of my wrap up there, is learn better. People should know better. There's not an excuse of not knowing this stuff, particularly for those in positions of power.